It, it's lovely to see so many faces. So thanks for coming. So yeah, so just a little bit about me. I'm a creative director by trade, as Yariv says. So I'm a creative guy. Worked at a lot of different studios in London, and have a real kind of deep love of brand and everything about it, and a deep love of helping businesses to kind of increase their brand value. We kind of get a big kick out of that. So I'm going to talk to you a bit today about why I think it's important for brands to kind of create an emotional connection to their audiences and some of the advantages of that. And then I'm going to talk to you about some of the ways that we go about kind of making sure that that happens. And, you know, some of the benefits as well of establishing a really strong emotional connection with you, you know, as a brand manager with your audience, or as a designer thinking about how people kind of feel when they look at your work. It's such a sort of big part of things. So styles and partners, we kind of believe in, I guess, three key things. We always try to create brands which are built to last. So they are not here today, gone tomorrow. They're kind of built for longevity, I suppose. Our aim is always to make the brands that we work on become quite iconic through the work that we do. We love it if we can kind of get into that space. And I think kind of having an emotional connection with your brand kind of really helps with that. I think sort of having something become iconic in its sector. And the last thing that we really believe in is really to help businesses thrive. I mean, that's really why we're here. Yes, we love to sit down and create things, but really, you know, we love it when our clients succeed and take their business to the next level. That for us, we get a huge kick out of that. So we believe in the first three things, and I think, but to kind of achieve those three things, really brands have to kind of emotionally connect with their audience. As Yariv says, we've worked and are working with a kind of host of brands. You know, we work internationally. We're not a big studio. In fact, the way that we're set up is very small and purposely so. But what we do is we do collaborate with a lot of designers and strategists who are situated globally. So, you know, we have designers in South Korea. We have strategists in New York, you know, and that's kind of how we like to work. It's with a lot of kind of freelance talent, and we basically assemble teams to tackle projects. And we love to pick international teams, because if we're working with a global brand, there's nothing better than picking a range of different types of people with different backgrounds to kind of work on it. So we're working with a lot of different brands and a lot of different sectors at a lot of different scales. So I think I'm going to start off with a little quote, and, you know, we might all be the master of our own thoughts, but really we're all slaves of our own emotions. And we can't help it. It's kind of built into our DNA as people. So, you know, it's such a kind of important thing to tap into with a brand. I always think it's a bit like going to the cinema. You know, if you sit down at the cinema and you watch a film and you see a moment and you hear the music, and you kind of feel that experience, and I think that's kind of what we look to do with brands. You know, I sometimes say we're kind of in the goosebumps business. You know, we want our clients to kind of give them goosebumps when they see the work that we do for them. So we're all the slaves of our own emotions, and of course, you know, brands know this. And have been kind of using emotion in advertising since the year dot, and Coca-Cola is a fantastic example of that. So, you know, using this idea of enjoyment, you know, people are in a mindset that they want to enjoy something, and they basically portray enjoyment through their brand and through their advertising. And the left example from years ago, and the right-hand example from more recently, but of course, you know, the message is still the same. you know, they're still talking about enjoyment. They're still portraying this idea of enjoyment, and they want us to feel like we will enjoy their product if we kind of buy it. So, you know, and I think what Coke have been great about doing is kind of establishing a really strong foundation there with a powerful thought about human connection and human emotion, and basically just continue to build on that. They don't change direction. Everything kind of builds off of the same starting point, and that's what makes a brand really strong. It's, I think, you know, establishing a really strong core and kind of building all of your communications off of that. So every time a customer interacts with you, they get the same sense from you. So Coke have been doing that for years, but of course, as sort of human beings, you know, we've all been kind of, or mankind has been expressing emotion before we could even talk. So if we kind of go back to the earliest kind of findings of man's presence on the earth, you know, kind of we're always expressing emotion through cave paintings, you know, before we could even sort of talk to each other. So it is part of our makeup, it's part of our DNA. We don't have to go to school to learn how to kind of be emotional. It's built into us and kind of each and every one of us. And, you know, because we kind of deal with global brands, there's such nuance around the world in terms of people, cultural sensibility, environmental factors, behaviors, wealth, all sorts of sort of factors which kind of make people different. But I think kind of one of the really common things around the world, whether your audience is in the Middle East or in Australasia or in South America, is that we all kind of are, as humans, want kind of a connection, an emotional connection. So we're all seeking this thing, and it doesn't matter how old we are, it doesn't matter where we live. So it's such a powerful tool to be able to kind of have a brand globally talk the same language and have the same reaction around the world. So we kind of love it from that point of view. And of course, you know, we looked at the cave painting, and these days, you know, there's a new kind of language for expressing our emotion. So we still love to express emotion in our communications. And I guess it's interesting, you know, we used to send text SMS messages before these guys came along, and you know, we couldn't really express ourselves. We couldn't kind of put a sort of feeling in our communication. And of course, now we have language of emojis, and we're kind of all able to do that, and we want to do that. You know, we want to sort of tell our friends exactly kind of what we're thinking, and almost by using an emoji, you get more of a sense of that than actually what we're saying. So need for emotion and communication through emotion is universal, and now we have this kind of special language for it. So I think if brands are really successful, they are, you know, they're starting to establish a really deep emotional connection with their audiences, and that kind of plays back at them. So if you take a brand like Apple, I think they, you know, on the example on the left here, they kind of realized that people would customize their laptops around the Apple sticker in the middle there. So what they did is they kind of gathered together loads of examples of that and created some of their own, and kind of created a whole campaign around it. And what's great is people are kind of expressing emotion around their brand here, and they kind of use that in a campaign. I think it's really interesting. And kind of on the right hand side, you know, that's the ultimate expression of emotional connection, isn't it? You know, like having a kind of a brand tattooed on you. I think if you get your brand to that level, you've made it, because you've a sort of hardcore audience there who are going to love you love you no matter what, and kind of really express that through something as sort of radical as getting their hand tattooed. So kind of really interesting. We you know, that doesn't happen overnight. That takes a long time to get there. It takes a long time to establish this core emotional need, work out what that is, and then play that up through the brand. But kind of if you get it right, and it will take a long time, but if you get it right, you'll get to this point, which is, you know, really successful in my eyes. So I guess we're often thinking about emotional connection. A lot of brands are sort of obviously thinking about this, and I think another example of where we work with brands that are thinking about that is we do a lot of work internally as well. And I think brands that take care of their people and show emotion and emotional connection to their people internally will, by its very nature, express itself externally. So I think if you're thinking about brands, you should be thinking internally as much as externally sometimes, because it's so crucial to get the kind of the internal emotional culture right, for your brand then to express that emotion externally. And we're working with Meta on a project like that at the moment, and I think, you know, there's an example here is lots of brands are, you know, will color they'll color their logo up in the Pride colors in Pride Month, or but actually the brands that are really more emotionally engaged are the ones that are actively thinking and Pride all year, rather than just sort of colouring their logo up in that certain week or month. So so really interesting to think about that from an internal point of view as well. If you're kind of working for a brand or with a brand, kind of getting that emotional sensitivity right internally, and that will express itself externally. So I think just to conclude on the intro, emotional connection wins because 90% of our buying decisions are made subconsciously. You would definitely get differentiation from your competitors. So if your competitors are kind of talking price, and you're thinking about something deeper and more universal, such as a sort of an emotional need, then you will win against your competitors. It will always give you a positive association with your brand, and I think it keeps you quite genuine and authentic. So I think it's great. It's a great tool. It creates a long-term relationship. It transcends kind of what's happening in the news or the market, and even a reaction to a specific product. So say if you launch a product and it tanks or it fails, actually, if people are emotionally connected to you, that kind of won't matter. They will forgive you for it. I think as long as you're coming from a place of truth, which is almost like the best version of your brand, the best version of you, and you're projecting that, then I think it will be a kind of really strong connection that you're creating. So we love it as a tool. We love thinking about that when we're sort of thinking about brands and brand identity. So a couple of examples. So we take this example. So so an emotion, there are many emotions, but I think, they kind of manifest themselves in some need states. And a big one is around, I want to feel like I stand out from the crowd. That's something that we all feel as human beings. It doesn't really matter our age. I think perhaps even the younger we are, perhaps even more important that is. We all want to project a kind of unique social identity. We all want to kind of be seen as special. So I think if a brand knows that, then there's things it can do. And I want to show you this example. So this is a brand, a challenger bank brand in the UK called Monzo. And they launched with a beta program with this card. And this card at the time was completely unique. It was really bright red color. And what was happening was, you know, so this is probably before mobile payments, so people are still paying by their card. Everyone is getting this card out in the queue for their coffee in the morning, and people are stood behind them and they're watching what's happening, and they notice that people are paying with this really kind of strong, bright red card. And what that does is it kind of creates excitement and a kind of, oh, that's a bit different. That person, oh, what, you know, kind of what are they paying with? That looks different. They're standing out. So it kind of created this real buzz around this red card. And also it was kind of in a beta program at the time, Monzo. And they kind of picked up on that and they started issuing something called golden tickets. So someone who was already a member of the beta program could issue a golden ticket to someone else, which creates even more kind of excitement and sort of want to be part of it when it's kind of something that's rare. So they played a really strong game. The red card was only supposed to be part of the beta launch, but then they ended up keeping it. And, you know, it's the reason that I wanted a Monzo account. It had nothing to do with any of their comms, nothing to do with the name, nothing to do with the logo. It was all about this red card, and sort of it looked different. And of course now it's not different because everyone's got one. But at the time, that was a kind of fulfilling an emotional need for me. So there's one example. And then another example might be, you know, we all want to feel like a sense of belonging. None of us want to feel like we don't belong or we're standing out. We all like to feel like we're connecting and we belong somewhere, and we have an affiliation with the people or place that we aspire to. So again, an example here might be creating a sense of belonging, might be Airbnb. And I think what was interesting about, if you think about Airbnb, so when they first launched, they had no physical assets, no employees, no physical spaces. In fact, they didn't have anything at all. All they had was a brand. And, you know, they've built basically a multi-million-dollar business off the back of just a brand, if you think about that, because, you know, that's where they started, because they didn't have anything else. And I think it's all about how you kind of connect with people. So if you know, if you're part of if you're in the marketing department or brand department of a company, and your CEO asks you if you can add value by developing your brand, the answer is yes, because, you know, here's a company that's done that and done it really successfully. So the strategy here was around belong anywhere, and the insight was that we all want to belong as an emotional state. And also the fact that if you kind of go and stay with a host, they'll be able to tell you more about the city that you're staying in, and they'll be able to tell you where to go, and you'll feel like you belong there more than, say, if you went in to kind of stay in a hotel. So I think what they've done is they found a real positive for what they offer, but it's kind of manifested in an emotional need state, in a sort of need to belong. And, you know, that's also in their mark. So in the little symbol, the A symbol is called BELO, short for belong. So it kind of, you know, there's a really nice story there. It's all connected around a sort of emotional need state. So it gives you a couple of examples of how other brands do it, and kind of how we do it is we sort of think about obviously the brand strategy. We often think about a creative idea as well as the strategy to kind of bring that strategy to life, and then also we look to create emotion, and we put that at the heart of everything we do. And of course then our offer kind of spirals out of that. So, you know, naming, messaging, visual identity, all the things that an agency would do. But kind of the important thing is that as we kind of develop outwards, that we are developing from that really strong sort of central core of great brand strategy, a really interesting creative idea and creating emotion, and kind of everything we do kind of unpacks from that. So let's talk about some of our projects. So we're going to start with Moonpig, and I'm going to show you kind of how that idea of emotional sort of connection kind of comes to life in our projects. So Moonpig, they're an original .com company, I suppose. They're a sort of company of the 90s when the internet was pretty early, and they sprang up as kind of one of the first, I suppose, online businesses, and they were selling gifts and cards. So and particularly personalized cards, because it kind of came with the invention of digital printing, so you could kind of print personalized cards in really short runs. And when we worked with them a few years ago, their sales had kind of been declining, and also they branched out into other products. They sell champagne, and they sell chocolates, and they sell flowers, and all sorts of things that actually their core customer base wasn't really aware that they did. So they kind of needed to change. Also, their identity was a bit, it looks like sort of 1990s.com. It kind of definitely had to sort of update. So where we started was with proposition, so strategy as ever. We came up with the idea of to show them you know them, trust Moonpig. And really the thought there is that if you can personalize a card, you can actually demonstrate to someone that you know them much more than buying an off-the-shelf one. So say, I don't know, this person is, I don't know, they might be madly into fishing and golf, for instance. I don't know, but you could kind of bring that to life on a card for them. And kind of by doing that, it sort of tells them that you kind of know them. And there's a real strong connection there, actually, emotionally, which we thought was really, really interesting. And the second bit of the proposition was the simple antidote to boring. So, like in English, if someone says boring, they really emphasize it. You know that you're being boring. And that was purposely done to try and make this brand fun. The creative idea was life is lived light on the moon. So we met with them. We met with their brilliant sales team, who would often be putting customers' problems right when packages have gone missing, and they were dealing with them brilliantly. So we love this idea, this strong kind of idea of almost like they're in their own little world, Moonpig, and wouldn't it be great if we offered our customers some escapism from their lives to kind of come into our world and spend a bit of time? So we started to think about this idea of emotional connection around our need states for kind of excitement and escapism. And we started to think about, wouldn't it be great if we just offer this world where customers could come and visit us, spend some money, browse through our products. So in terms of the visual identity, what we try to do is kind of manifest that emotional need right into the kind of logo type. So Moonpig is fun, it's exciting, it's not what you'd expect. It's kind of, we talked a bit about living life on the light side, living life on the moon, and kind of what that would be. So the logo type is floating away. It's almost in zero gravity. We also designed it to contract into the little app icon, and also to extend out, because they have this wonderful jingle at the end of their ads, which goes Moonpig, and it was kind of quite a famous thing that was in people's brains. So it sort of made sense to keep that and kind of design the logo type to adapt to it. So that was a lot of fun. And let me just click on. Yeah. And then, as I said before, like condensing it down into the app icon. So I don't know if you see it, and some people see it, but if you look at the O's there's almost like a pig's snout. And the thought was, wouldn't that be really fun if we condensed it down into this shorthand? So you just get this really fun sense of a pig, but you're not quite sure if it is pig. But it's a really fun kind of manifestation in the small space, which is kind of really important to think about, like how brands, you know, show up on mobile and how they show up in the small space. So that was really good fun to have done that. And then in their art direction, again, bringing this idea of life is lived lighter, of excitement, of escapism. How can you bring your products to life in a really interesting way? If we take some of these things here, obviously it's in the UK, so there's a lot of Christmas stuff, Christmas celebration stuff. The thing at the top in the middle there is like a Christmas pudding thing, and that costs £5. It's a really cheap sort of thing made out of paper, but you know, by propping it and using this idea of zero gravity and excitement, you can even bring something quite mundane to life with a story, which really helps to kind of lift their products. We then looked at their typography as well. So we designed a typeface which followed the logo type, and we used it in their headlines. So their headlines kind of lift, they wobble, and they shake. You can see there's kind of 3 ways that the typography kind of sets, and this gives them a kind of really unique typeface that they can use in their communications. And we quite like using unique typefaces because, you know, it can kind of really embody the personality of the brand, especially when you're talking with a kind of unique font, and almost lessens the need for the logo in many ways on the communication. So it's a really strong kind of thing to do. And of course, there's lots of brands around, so having your own unique typeface is a real kind of plus, because it really does make you stand out. It's worth the investment in our eyes. And then creating excitement in packaging. So how do we kind of create excitement here? And you know, previously the packaging was really dull and almost a bit embarrassing. Like if you've got a Moonpig product, you know, in a package, you wouldn't really want to advertise that, because it was a sort of destination. If you'd kind of forgotten about someone and you had to get something last minute, you kind of go to Moonpig because it's the only place you could get something. So it almost became a slight negative for the brand. And actually we wanted to celebrate it as a positive. So we created this lovely packaging. So you'd almost be quite proud and excited when you kind of got a package, you received a package from Moonpig. And oh, sorry, went back. Yeah, more of the packaging, and also the tone of voice here. You know, it's just having fun. It's for you. You know, just quite nice. It kind of, again, just it creates some excitement and escapism from life's dullness sometimes, in the tone of voice as well. So that was the packaging, and then we kind of worked again sort of internally with you know, staff giveaways, and we did these vans which went around town, which have a slight kind of pun on them, Vroompig instead of Moonpig, which again is just fun. I think, you know, this brand always feels like fun and escapism, and that's kind of how it looked. So as everything comes together, you know, you can take that idea and put it all the way through the brand. If you look at the bottom left here, that was even the blinds in their offices. You could basically, you know, it was Moonpig, and you could basically lift and pull the letters up and down on the blinds. And it's just a really fun thing for staff to be able to do. We also looked at advertising and stuff like that. So yeah, so Moonpig, a real fun one. And again, that idea of sort of emotional connection at the heart of it. And it's been, you know, really successful for them. They sort of went for their IPO. They attracted lots of new customers and had a £1.2 billion IPO in 2021, which is really, really strong. And you know, whilst we can't claim all of that value, we certainly helped to build value in their brand to kind of help them achieve that listing. And that, you know, as I said before, kind of when our clients flourish, we love that. I'm going to talk about one that's a bit closer to home. So Playtika, global brand based in Herchlid, just out down the road from Tel Aviv, and we worked with these guys in conjunction with Open, who are based in Tel Aviv, and really good studio. We work, you know, we do collaborate with other agencies sometimes, and we were working with a client. We actually sort of brought them in to help on this because the client wanted an Israeli-based agency to help them to deliver this. So it's really nice to be able to collaborate with other studios as well. As you may, if you know them, Playtika, leading mobile game company, obviously based in Israel, and in a rapid growth, really kind of crazy growth, acquiring lots of new studios, acquiring lots of games. So they wanted a piece of strategy that kind of brought that to life. So we worked with another agency, a strategy partner here in the UK, and they came up with Infinite Ways to Play, which is a lovely piece of strategy because it kind of gives them something to hook their brand around, and it doesn't limit them. I think what's great about that is it kind of gave them infinite ways that the brand can expand and be, you know, chase down kind of other software studios and stuff like that. So it's a brilliant piece of strategy. And we kind of worked with Open to kind of have fun and just play. So we you know, there's I think the emotional need here is, as humans, we all kind of want to play. We're kind of, as kids, you know, that's what we want to do. But even as adults, we want to play sport, we play games, or we board games or computer games. So kind of the, you know, again, here, there's an emotional need for humans to play, which brings a really strong sense of connection to this brand. So we did lots of play in our exploration, and I painted this thing on the right here. And it kind of reminded me of a cheetah's spots, and the cheetah is the symbol of Playtika, and the cheetah kind of moving really quickly. You know, the spots kind of turn to lines, and we kind of really like this. So we sort of developed that further, and I think this project also we were quite conscious that as Playtika buy more studios, you know, there's different cultures there of different software developers that all need to kind of come under the Playtika umbrella, and they're all very creative people. And what we thought is, if we gave this brand identity lots of flex all around this idea of cheetah spots, like each of the studios could have their own version of the cheetah spots. And what that does is it kind of gives them a sense of ownership of the brand. So they then feel more emotionally invested in the place they work. So we're thinking here about internally the people and how they kind of connect, with the brand. And then you see here just some of our exploration work on the identity. We wanted to make the cheetah much sharper because the company had changed beyond recognition since the start of it. So make him much more aggressive and almost have him peering out for opportunities, because this is how Playtika works. They're always looking for the next studio to buy. So that was really interesting to develop into the final mark you saw there, where rather than sort of just sitting there rather aimlessly, he's kind of much more focused and he's looking for opportunity, which sort of fits them. And then just this just sort of shows how it comes to life. So you've got all the different textures. So this is all of the different studios that they own coming together under the Playtika brand. And then also introducing game characters into the conversation as well. So we can kind of bring some of their key game characters in as well. So what's happening is Playtika is taking, I guess, credit for a game like Tropicats. Tropicats is the cat here you see, who's dancing in the middle here. That's one of their games. So it's just trying to show like the games, the studios and Playtika all as one, rather than kind of I don't know, rather than sort of lots of separate things, it's a way to kind of join everything up together. So when we looked at that, we looked at kind of how they might badge their games. We looked at their social, obviously, like how they might kind of do social. And then the rest is just sort of looking at, things, the usual things for staff, how their brand works in the small space. Again, really important, social icons. We never did this, but we wanted to do the bus. I mean, it drives around Tel Aviv, picking everyone up in the morning, and that'd be a great place to kind of bring the brand to life. And then I was really impressed because you see here some internal shots, and I love this because if you have something like infinite ways to play as a piece of strategy, and then you think about how you can build off of that into your environments. They work with this company called N&O, who again are Israeli based, and they are brilliant at interiors. And basically what they did is they gamified a lot of their interior spaces. So their reception desk would kind of be a game. You'd stand in front of it and it would change. And then they had these ceilings which were made out of LED, which would move. And obviously they spent a lot of money, but it's a really amazing space when they've done this. It was brilliant, and it really shows how the strategy comes to life, not only in graphics but also in environments, and that's brilliant. And you see here on the left, like the new logo at the back of the desk there, looking really cool. And then the usual staff giveaways with the tutor textures, and then really conscious to kind of give each studio its own business card. So again, and really we wanted each studio to be able to design their own. So, that we would give them colors, but they could kind of create their own tutor spots. And again, what that does is it sort of makes them feel, a really big part of the overall Playtika brand, and like they're part of it, but they've also got their own voice. And I think that was really important. So we proposed to do that as well. And here you see how the whole thing kind of comes together. So that was Playtika. That was a kind of a local one, and we had a lot of fun going over to Israel and spending some time in Tel Aviv, and I want to come back and do some more of that. And I think sort of following our work, they had this massive valuation. I think it was the largest IPO ever held by an Israeli company at the time. And again, we can't claim full credit for that, of course, but helping them to build value in their brand helps to build value in their company, and that's reflected in the market price that they achieved. So so lastly, I'll just skip through this, we leave a bit of time for questions. So this is Head, sports brand based in Austria, and so this is not really brand project. This is more kind of executional stuff, I suppose, because we haven't had a chance to work on their brand yet. But they're a really kind of great company to work for. They're kind of really fun. They're kind of big in winter sport and tennis. They're the two kind of main areas that they operate in. So we just help them to build some feeling, I guess, around their brand. And we did some kind of key advertising visuals for them and stuff like that. And this was one of them with some of their racers. And here we're just trying to create emotion here, emotional connection here. Like if you've been skiing and you kind of know what the feeling's like of sort of carving on fresh snow, there's nothing really better. So kind of bringing that to life visually was the thought here. Creating a sense of speed as well, like in the sort of key visuals. So I think even thinking about emotional connection, even at this level, like a much kind of lower down executional level, I think is really kind of important. We worked on an identity for Team Head, which is their tennis academy. And here really we were thinking about, well, what do people want to do if they go to a tennis academy? Well, they want to kind of progress, right? They want to improve. So the thought here is kind of bringing that to life in the logo and in the symbol. So you can kind of see how we've done that using a sort of tennis ball, which actually incorporates the wishbone, which is their little signature mark in the tennis ball. And then we just, we did, we rolled that out across their kind of app and even into some of their team head kind of apparel as well, because they did some of that. I think you can create emotional connection through product as well. Like they launched 2 shoes at the same time. So we thought, how do we turn that into a story? Maybe we pitched the shoes against each other. One was called Nitro, the other one was called Revolt. So we kind of created a story here and some kind of, I guess, some excitement around each shoe and kind of like the differences between them, and kind of talked about that. There's a lot of kind of art direction for them on their sportswear. And then I think finally we worked on this, and I think here's a good example of emotional connection through a campaign. So we started here on the left by teasing this new racket, which were they going to launch, which kind of featured this special kind of carbon insert. So we kind of teased with this visual on the left, and we did a kind of countdown thing. So again, building excitement, building anticipation. And then on the right-hand side is when that product actually launched. We worked on key visuals for them to sort of launch it. But really the key thing here was the story and creating that excitement, building it up, building a sense of anticipation up for something to launch, because it creates some interest around it. So that's some of our work for Head. And then I think really, lastly, to leave you with this before we kind of get onto some questions. So I think really what we should do, we should ask ourselves, not what do we want our customers to see and do, but what do we want our customers to feel? I think that is the key thing. So if we're thinking about a piece of design, if we're thinking about launching a product, if we're thinking about creating a brand, we want to be thinking about what do we want our customers to feel, because that will be the thing that will emotionally connect them to your brand, and that will be the thing which will build longevity and strength, and it'll help you to ride the storm, help you to ride tough market conditions and all sorts of things. So that is how we start. So that was my end of my deck. I hope I've been good on timing. Yeah, there you're in.
Yes. First of all, it was fascinating, and I want to thank you, and I want to and I want to say that I think that as you said in the last quote, that you have to cause your customers to feel, and I think that you did great with your examples on Moonpig, on Playtika and Head, because you've just succeeded to create an emotion. And I want to ask you a question. What do you think is the just a moment. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to ask you, what do you think? What is the design place in creating the emotion? The graphic design. What is the design place?
Well, it's really important. I mean, it's really important. I think you've got to be really disciplined and simple. And I really like using a really simple technique. So if you look at Moonpig, like the idea in design there is weightlessness. That's it. And then that gives you something to build everything around. It's a kind of a really simple idea. I mean, we're working with another client at the moment where it's a mortgage company, and basically what they do is they sell mortgages, and so the whole thing there is about they want they want to be able to get you into your house. So our thought is, wouldn't it be great if we kind of created some graphic like a leap, which would almost kind of take customers into the house. So we kind of created a logo with a leap, which leaps you into a house, and it's really simple, but it's just thinking about that real simple clarity of thought, packing that emotion into a really simple mechanic, I think, and then just the same mechanic through everything.
And what do you do when you have a great idea and you're sure that it's going to work, and the customer says, I don't like it, or I don't feel, what do you do when you know that you have something good under your hands, and what do you do then?
Well, that's a difficult one. I mean, I think we try and make sure that doesn't happen. So I would say we try and structure the presentation so they become emotionally connected to what we're showing them. That's really important. Like you build the story, you build up the idea, so they emotionally connect to what you were showing a client, rather than subjectively railing against it. So we try and avoid that. But I guess if they really don't like something, then we'll go away and do it again. We'll think of another way. And it does, of course, it does happen. But I think because we try and get our clients to feel what we're showing them in the presentation, and I think that goes a long way actually to getting them to like something, because they kind of feel what we're showing them rather than sort of just see it, if you know what I mean. There's a real skill to how you present, actually.
So your key word to branding is what do you feel? If you have something, this is the first question. Do you feel something? Do you feel something?
Yeah.
If you're not feeling, you're not on the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's good. And as a designer, do we feel this, or do we not? And I think as designers, we're quite good at that. We're quite emotional, I think, and we know when something feels good. We kind of get a bit of a tingle from it. And I think if you're in that space, then that's a great space to be. And I think we know when we're not in that space, and we know when we need to do more work. So yeah, it's a good question. It's a fascinating question.
אוקיי, מישהו רוצה לשאול את איאן איזושהי שאלה, אז זה הזמן.
I have something to say. Let me...
רק תציגי את עצמך.
Roy. Hi.
Okay.
Hi, Ian. How are you? Very interesting. Since you were working with Israelis, I'll be direct. I opened the camera, so be respectful. I was kind of expecting of a different lecture.
Okay.
It's very interesting, but it's the whole lecture that you gave us here, at least in my perspective, it felt like it more for big companies and not for small businesses. And also I missed some value, what can I do now to be more emotional brand? And it's more was like a showcase of what you did, which is not, that's to get some value for myself. So I'm a bit confused.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Well, I think I can only really point to some of the things that I raised earlier, I suppose, and thinking about as a small brand. I guess if you have a brand, well, if you have a brand project, so you're kind of creating again from scratch, or you're rebranding, I would really think about kind of a piece of strategy there which is genuine and honest and plays to your strengths, but also kind of has an emotional, has some emotional connection in it. Not only so your customers can buy into it, but also so your CEO can buy into it, or your board can buy into it. So I think if you're kind of embarking on a piece of brand, a kind of a rebrand or a piece of branding, I think that's where you should start. I guess if you're asking me tomorrow, what can I do to become more emotional on the next campaign or on your next kind of social post, I guess that probably depends on quite a few kind of different factors. So I don't know, like maybe you might think, maybe you might do a piece of research on your customers tomorrow. Maybe you might think, okay, so how are we selling at the moment? Like, what is the perception of our brand? How, let's talk to some of our customers. Let's understand kind of what they're feeling when they look at us. Is there anything that we can do to improve that? So I think there are things you can do if you want to become more of an emotional brand. I don't think it's a kind of change your color and everything will work. It's going to be more understanding your customers and perhaps how they're currently responding to your brand. And is there a gap? Is there something more which you could be doing either through your tone of voice or through your visuals to have more of an emotional connection with them? So I think there is something that you could do tomorrow. And you might take that data and you might think about your next campaign, and maybe you would kind of test it. Maybe you'd launch a campaign which was completely focused on emotion for your next one, and test the data. Like, how does it perform? So I think there are things that you could do even as a small business. Obviously, I don't know how big you are or kind of what your budgets are like, but I think there's always stuff that we could do. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. We have here a question from רעות. רעות, את רוצה שאני אשאל או את רוצה לשאול?
לא, תשאל אתה.
Okay, רעות, she's asking two questions. The first question is, hi, Ian, thank you for coming to lecture us. I would love to know if you think emotion can drive a branding process. I mean, start from the emotion and move to the strategy.
Oh, yeah, I think it could. Yeah, I do. I think it could. There's been some pieces on this in the Harvard Business Review and stuff, which I did read up on a little bit before we kind of put this together. I think that's a great idea. I think the strategy should come from the emotion, perhaps. I think, and I think maybe Playtika is a good example of that. The emotional need to play, and then the strategy being born from that. I think it's really, it's doubly. Yeah, it's almost twice as strong, I think, if you were to approach it like that. I think that's a really interesting point. I've not really thought about that, but I think you're right. Yeah, emotion first.
And the next question of Raut is, how do you know which emotion from the brand range of emotion is the most appropriate to put on the front?
So ask your customers. So you've got to ask them, you've got to get the data, you've got to kind of get into their head, you've got to kind of understand what they need. So just interview your customers. We did a lot of that on this kind of mortgage company that we're working with to really understand the need states of their customers and kind of what were they feeling. When they got rejected from another lender, because who wouldn't lend them the money so they could remortgage and stay in their house. We asked them these difficult questions and they came back and they said, we were scared. We thought we might have to move. We thought we might have to move out of the area. We thought we might have to move away from our family. So you can get, I think the only way you can work out what the emotion is to talk to people and to get them to open up to you and to tell you, basically. And then run the data on run run the data on those responses and then see what the emotional triggers are. So that's the way to do it. And
Okay.
you might be surprised. There might be completely what you're not expecting.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you very much.
And another question is by Itai Foystrom, I think. And this is the billion dollar question. How do you measure success of your brand?
So yeah, there are ways. So there are ways to measure. There's a few tools out there which you can use to do that. There's also kind of like I know Interbrand do a brand valuation index, which is really expensive to be part of. So if you're a small company, that's going to be difficult. I think there are some tools out there. I mean, kind of what it's a very difficult thing. It's not an easy thing to do, but I would say you might look at an uptick in social activity. You might look at, in sharing, basically. You might really monitor that. You might look at an uptick in analytics on your web, on your platforms. If you've run a campaign, you might monitor that and just see kind of what the response is. I think probably they're the two best things. There are some tools out there, but I haven't actually used them. And I say there are some big players in that market out there, but you have to pay a lot of money to be part of that. And, which is fine if you're McDonald's, but not if you're not. So I would say it's that. I would say you're monitoring for positive association, people sharing content, those kind of things. That's when you know that your brand is becoming more successful, if you're getting more uptick on that.
אוקיי, מישהו רוצה לשאול עוד שאלה?
כן, אני אשמח.
אוקיי, בבקשה.
Hey, Ian, first of all, a very good lecture. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My question basically, I don't think how related it is, but I see the big media companies go towards video content. So basically the question is, how do you connect the graphic content with the video content in order to, let's say, be different from the other companies? How do you do it the best?
So you're asking me specifically in video how to connect with graphics. Is that what you're asking me? I mean, I think I didn't because do you know what I would say? I would say you don't necessarily need the graphics in the video. So what I would do is I would basically work out what the emotional need state is, and then I would make a film based on that. And then in static, you might do something slightly different. See, I don't think everything has to look the same. I think what you're looking for is to create the same feeling, not necessarily the same look. So it's a slightly different thing. And I think on video, you have so much more opportunity to emotionally connect. I mean, you really do. I mean, we're making a film for Meta at the moment on their people, and it's powerful because if you kind of get the right visuals and you get the right music, I think you can kind of create something that really strongly emotionally connects. And then I would just basically have an end frame or something. So you basically, maybe you wrap the video into the graphics and then wrap it into the identity, but don't do it throughout the video, do it at the end. Because I think actually then the video becomes much more genuine, especially if you're kind of featuring people, real people and real stories. I think that's a really much more powerful way to do it. It kind of feels like it's a much more genuine way to kind of make a film rather than putting loads of animation all over it. Because I think that can be kind of a bit false sometimes, and it doesn't. And there's so much content out there that it's difficult to stand out. So say you made a film about your 3 best customers talking about you and the difference you make for them, their lives or their business. That for me is a really powerful way to bring your brand to life through someone else's voice who's kind of actually actively engaged with you, rather than sort of animation where you've got boxes flying in and statements going up. I mean, I think if you think about getting that emotional connection, you can really make a great film about that, you know, and a lovely script and some great music as well, because of course, like sound, you know, sound's so underused in our kit of parts. Sometimes I should use it more. To be honest, I once went to a lecture by a sound designer, and they blew my mind because some of the things they were talking about and how we respond to sound as human beings is amazing. So that would be my advice. I'd say I wouldn't clash the two together. I'd make a really strong film about the emotional connection between your customers and your brand or your service, and then just wrap it into the identity at the end, and leave them to do the talking, because they'll sell it better than flying graphics for sure.
Thank you for the answer. To be honest, I kind of screwed up the question because I got nervous from all the people. The usual question was, how do you think about moving towards a video content? But you answered it very, very good. Just use video content.
Yes.
So basically, yeah. So basically, you answered. Thank you.
Okay.
Twice the engagement. I think the numbers are crazy. The engagement.
Yeah, the numbers are very crazy. So basically, every time I'm using a graphic photo, the numbers not so good. And all the photos that you showed here, all of them was graphic. So I just thought about it, but you answered it like in a different way.
Yeah,
because I screwed up. Okay, so thank you about it. Thank you for
that.
I want to thank Ian for your passion and for your lecture. I think that I usually like to focus. I think that if you take one thing, it's enough. And I think that the word feel, what do you feel? Do we feel it? I think that the difference between Ian and us is that Ian is obligated. You are very obligated to the feel, to the feeling, and across your process of branding, you don't let the word to escape. It is all the time. And if you are obligated to this, I think that you will succeed, because people want to feel something to the brand.
We can't help but feel. Yeah.
So I want to thank you very much. אני רוצה להודות לכל מי שהיה כאן ונשאר איתנו עד הסוף, ואנחנו נעדכן אתכם בהרצאה הבאה. תודה רבה לכולם. Thank you very much and have a good weekend.
תודה רבה. תודה, thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good weekend.
תודה רבה, תודה רבה.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.
ביי. תודה רבה.
בשמחה.